Dr. Amanda Clark stood at the window of the hospital ship sanctuary, watching the planet Xerion grow larger as they approached. The brown and orange world looked sick from space, with strange, dark patches spreading across its surface like wounds. She had seen many damaged worlds in her 10 years as a space medic, but this one looked different. This one looked like it was dying. "Dr. Clark, we're getting signals from the surface," said Jake Thompson, walking up behind her. The young medical coordinator always looked worried, but today he looked more worried than usual. "The Zerathi aren't happy we're here. They're calling us sky demons." Amanda sighed and turned away from the window. The Zerathi were reptile-like beings who had never trusted aliens before. Now they were dying from a plague that their own doctors couldn't cure. Earth had received their desperate call for help 3 weeks ago. "They can call us whatever they want," Amanda said, "as long as they let us help them." The sanctuary was one of Earth's largest medical ships. It carried over 300 doctors, nurses, and medical technicians. The ship looked like a giant white cross floating through space, with red medical symbols painted on its sides. Inside, it had everything needed to treat any known alien species. Dr. Kevin Martinez joined them at the window. The chief surgeon was a tall man with steady hands and kind eyes. He had worked with Amanda for 5 years, and she trusted him more than anyone else on the ship. "The scans show the plague is worse than we thought," Kevin said, holding a data pad. "It's killing them faster than they reported. We might have weeks, not months." Amanda nodded. Time was always their enemy when dealing with plagues. "Have you figured out what's causing it?" "It looks like a virus, but it's unlike anything in our databases. Dr. Lisa Wang is already working on it in the lab. She thinks she can develop a treatment, but she needs live samples. Dr. Lisa Wang was their best disease specialist. If anyone could cure this plague, it would be her. But getting samples meant going down to the planet's surface, where the Zerathi might shoot them on sight. "Captain Morrison says we can take shuttles down to the main city," Jake said. "But the Zerathi military will escort us everywhere. They don't trust us." Amanda understood their fear. The Zerathi had been fighting wars with other alien species for hundreds of years. They had learned to fear strangers, but fear wouldn't save them from the plague. The shuttle ride to Xerion's surface was bumpy. The planet's atmosphere was thick and hot, making the small medical ship shake as it flew down. Amanda sat with her medical team, checking their equipment one more time. They carried portable scanners, medicine dispensers, and emergency surgery tools. The Zerathi city was huge, but mostly empty. Tall brown buildings reached toward the sky like dead trees. Streets that should have been full of people were quiet. The few Zerathi they saw moved slowly, their scales dull and gray instead of the bright green they should have been. General Kexavon met them at the landing area. He was a large Zerathi with battle scars covering his arms and neck. His yellow eyes showed both anger and desperation. "Sky demons," he growled in broken English. "You come to steal our secrets." "We come to save your people," Amanda replied calmly. "Nothing more." The general stared at her for a long moment. "Many aliens have said this before. They all wanted something." Amanda pulled out her medical scanner and held it up so he could see it. "This machine only finds sickness. It doesn't look for weapons or treasure. We only want to help your people get better." They followed the general through the empty streets to the largest hospital in the city. Inside, the smell of death and disease was overwhelming. Zerathi patients lay on beds that filled every room and hallway. Many were unconscious. Others moaned in pain. Dr. Wong immediately began taking samples while Kevin and the other doctors started examining patients. Amanda worked with the Zarathi doctors, trying to understand their medical knowledge and share her own. The Zarathi chief healer was an old female named Ithara. She had been fighting the plague for months and was exhausted. Her own scales were starting to show early signs of the disease. "We have tried everything," Ithara said sadly. "Our ancestors' medicines, new treatments, even prayers to the old gods, nothing works." "Tell me about the first cases," Amanda said, setting up her equipment next to a dying patient. "It started in the mining colonies near the northern mountains. Workers came back sick. We thought it was just fatigue from hard work. Then it spread to their families, then to the whole colony." Amanda scanned the patient with her medical device. The readings showed massive organ failure and genetic damage. Whatever this plague was, it attacked the Zarathi at the cellular level. "How long from first symptoms to death?" she asked. 2 weeks for adults. Children die faster." Ithara's voice broke. "We have lost thousands. Soon there will be no one left." For 3 days, the human medical team worked without stopping. They barely slept or ate, focusing completely on understanding the plague. Dr. Wang worked in the makeshift lab while Kevin performed surgery to keep the worst cases alive. Amanda coordinated everything, making sure supplies and information flowed where they were needed. The breakthrough came on the 4th day. Dr. Wang burst into the main treatment area, holding a vial of blue liquid. "I've got it!" she shouted. "It's not a natural virus. Someone made this thing." Amanda stopped what she was doing and rushed over. "Made it? You mean artificial?" "Completely artificial. It's designed specifically to kill Zarathi. The genetic markers are too perfect to be natural. Someone created this as a weapon." The news was shocking, but also hopeful. If the plague was artificial, it might be easier to cure than a natural disease. Lisa had already begun developing a treatment based on human antiviral technology. "How long for a cure?" Amanda asked. "Give me 2 more days. I can modify our broad-spectrum antiviral to target this specific weapon." Amanda looked around the hospital at the dying Zarathi. 2 days might be too long for many of them, but it was their only hope. General Kexavan had been listening from nearby. His expression had changed from suspicion to something else. "You really came only to help," he said quietly. "Yes," Amanda replied. "We don't care about your politics or your wars. We only care about saving lives." The general was quiet for a moment. "Other aliens have attacked us many times, but you are the first to risk your lives for ours." Amanda smiled sadly. "That's what doctors do. We help whoever needs help." For the first time since they arrived, General Kexvan looked hopeful. "Then perhaps there is hope for our people after all." 3 months after saving Zarion, the Sanctuary received an emergency call from the Zephyr system. The message was short and desperate. "War zone, massive casualties, need immediate medical assistance." Dr. Amanda Clark stood in the ship's command center reading the reports. The Krathari Empire had attacked a peaceful Zephyrian colony without warning. The blue-skinned Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy for their art and music, not for war. They had no chance against the Krathari military machine. "It's a massacre down there," said Captain Morrison, the ship's commander. "The Krathari are using banned weapons, chemical bombs, sonic disruptors, the works." Jake Thompson looked up from his communication station. "The Zephyrian government is begging for help. They have thousands of wounded and no way to treat them all." Amanda made the decision quickly. Set course for Zephyr Prime, maximum speed. Doctor, Captain Morrison said carefully, this isn't like Zerion. This is an active war zone. The Krathari might consider us military targets. Then we'll have to be careful, Amanda replied. But we can't let people die just because someone else is fighting. The journey to Zephyr Prime took 2 days. During the trip, Dr. Kevin Martinez and his surgical team prepared for the worst kinds of war injuries. Dr. Lisa Wang worked on treatments for chemical weapon exposure. The entire medical staff studied Zephyrian and Krathari anatomy, preparing to treat both species. Marine Captain Ryan Kelly had joined the ship on Zerion as part of a new security program. He was a tall, serious man who had fought in several human conflicts before joining the Medical Corps Escort Division. He wasn't happy about flying into a war zone with a ship full of doctors. "This is crazy," Ryan said to Amanda as they approached the planet. "We're flying a hospital ship into the middle of a battle. The Krathari shoot first and ask questions never. Our job is to save lives," Amanda replied firmly. "That includes Krathari lives if they need saving." Ryan stared at her. "You'd treat the same soldiers who are killing innocent civilians?" "A wounded person is just a wounded person. It doesn't matter which side they're on." The captain shook his head, but said nothing more. He had heard about human medical ethics, but seeing it in action was different. Zephyr Prime was burning. The sanctuary's sensors showed fires across 3 continents and massive destruction in the major cities. Krathari warships filled the sky like angry metal clouds, raining death on the blue world below. Captain Morrison managed to negotiate safe passage to the planet's largest medical facility. The Zephyrian authorities had declared it a neutral zone, but whether the Krathari would respect that was anyone's guess. The hospital in the capital city was overwhelmed. Zephyrian medical staff moved between hundreds of wounded patients lying on floors, in hallways, and in converted storage rooms. The smell of burned flesh and disinfectant filled the air. Dr. Martinez immediately began setting up surgical stations in the hospital's main lobby. Within an hour, human medical teams were working throughout the building, treating everything from burns to radiation poisoning to sonic damage. Amanda was treating a young Zephyrian girl when the first Krathari prisoners were brought in. The insect-like warriors had been captured during a failed ground assault. 3 of them were badly wounded, their hard shells cracked and leaking green blood. The Zephyrian guards wanted to leave the Krathari to die, but Amanda stepped forward. "Bring them to Treatment Area 7. Dr. Wang will handle them." "Doctor," one of the Zephyrian medics said in shock, "those are the enemy. They killed dozens of our people today. And now they're patients," Amanda replied calmly. "We treat patients." Word spread quickly through the hospital. Human doctors were treating Krathari soldiers. Some Zephyrian staff were angry. Some were confused. But they all watched as Dr. Wong carefully cleaned and bandaged the wounds of beings who had been trying to kill them hours earlier. One of the wounded Krathari was a young warrior named Vestan. He had taken shrapnel in his chest and was barely conscious. As Dr. Wang worked on him, he kept trying to speak. "Why?" he finally managed to say in broken universal language. "Why help enemies?" Dr. Wang looked down at him while she sealed a crack in his shell. "Because you're hurt. That's enough reason." Vestan was quiet for a long time after that. Amanda could see him thinking, trying to understand what was happening. Captain Ryan Kelly was not pleased with the situation. He found Amanda in the surgical prep area during a brief break. "This is wrong," he said bluntly. Those Krathari will heal up and go right back to killing civilians. We're helping them murder innocents." Amanda was tired and covered in blood from a dozen different species. She looked at the Marine captain with patient eyes. "Maybe some of them will go back to fighting," she said. "But maybe some of them won't. Maybe seeing mercy will change their minds." "That's a big maybe to bet lives on." "It's the only bet worth making," Amanda replied. "The moment we start choosing who deserves medical care, we stop being doctors." The fighting continued for 2 weeks. Every day brought new casualties to the hospital. Human medical teams worked around the clock, treating everyone who needed help. Slowly, something strange began to happen. Krathari soldiers who had been treated by human doctors started refusing to attack medical facilities. Word spread through their ranks about the strange aliens who healed enemies. Some Krathari units began bringing their own wounded to the human doctors instead of letting them die. Vextar recovered from his injuries but refused to leave the hospital. He spent his time helping to move patients and translate between species. When a group of Krathari commandos attacked the hospital, he stood with the human Marines to defend the medical staff. "This place is sacred," he told his former comrades in the Krathari language. "These humans heal without asking payment or loyalty. They are touched by something greater than war." The attack failed, and more Krathari began to question their orders to target medical facilities. Dr. Wang was exhausted but fascinated by what was happening. "I've never seen anything like this," she told Amanda. "Combat soldiers from both sides are working together to protect medical areas. It's like the concept of healing is stronger than the instinct to fight." Amanda wasn't surprised. She had seen it before on a smaller scale. People understand mercy when they see it. Even in the middle of war, most beings want to preserve life, not destroy it. The war ended when the Krathari High Command recalled their forces. The attack on Zephyr Prime had been intended as a quick conquest, but the unexpected resistance and international pressure forced them to withdraw. As the sanctuary prepared to leave, Vextar came to speak with Amanda one last time. "I will return to my people," he said, "but I will tell them what I learned here. That strength can be shown through healing as well as fighting. That mercy is not weakness." Amanda shook his clawed hand. "Take care of yourself, Vextar. And you, Doctor. You have shown me that there are things worth protecting besides territory and pride." Captain Ryan Kelly watched the exchange from nearby. He was beginning to understand what Amanda meant about mercy being worth the risk. As the sanctuary left Zephyr Prime, the crew received hundreds of messages from both Zephyrian and Krathari survivors. All of them said the same thing. "Thank you for showing us that healing is possible, even in the darkest times." But in the distant Krathari capital, High Command was not pleased with reports of their soldiers being contaminated by human mercy. Plans were already being made to deal with the troublesome medical ships once and for all. Dr. Kevin Martinez stood on the observation deck of the medical station orbiting Haven's Edge, watching refugee ships arrive one after another. The frontier world had become a gathering point for species fleeing the expanding Krathari Empire. Beings from dozens of different worlds crowded together in makeshift camps, all hoping to find safety. "We've got another transport coming in," said Nicole Adams, the station's chief nurse practitioner. She was a calm woman who never seemed fazed by any medical emergency. 2,000 refugees from the Altair colonies. Half of them are suffering from radiation poisoning. Kevin sighed and turned away from the window. The mobile medical unit he commanded had been operating at Haven's Edge for 6 months. What had started as a temporary assignment had become a permanent crisis response center. "How are our supplies holding up?" he asked. "Running low on everything," Nicole replied honestly. "But Scott Brown thinks he can modify some Zentorian medical equipment to work with our systems. He's been trading knowledge with their healers. Scott Brown was their best paramedic and had a gift for understanding alien technology. He had been working with refugee medical personnel from a dozen different species, sharing human techniques, while learning their methods. The medical station was a marvel of cooperation. Human doctors worked alongside Zarathi healers, Zephyrian researchers, and medical experts from species that had been enemies just months before. The common threat of Krathari expansion had forced them to work together. Dr. Martinez walked through the station's main medical bay, checking on patients. In one bed, a wounded Draconian pilot was being treated by a Zarathi healer using human-designed equipment. Nearby, a human nurse was learning Zephyrian surgical techniques from a blue-skinned doctor. "Dr. Martinez," called out Dr. Yithmar, a Zarathi healer who had joined them after the plague on Zerion was cured. "The Coalition Council wants to speak with you. They say it's urgent." Kevin made his way to the station's communications center. The Coalition was a loose alliance of refugee species that had formed to coordinate their defense against the Krathari. They had no military to speak of, just the desperate hope that working together might help them survive. The hologram of Ambassador Veltar, a Zephyrian diplomat, flickered to life in the communication chamber. Her blue skin was pale with worry. "Dr. Martinez," she said without greeting, "we have received intelligence that the Krathari fleet is moving toward Haven's Edge. They intend to destroy this world and everyone on it." Kevin felt his blood turn cold. "How long do we have?" 3 days, perhaps 4. The fleet is massive. Over 200 warships. "We need to evacuate everyone immediately," Kevin said. "How many ships do we have available?" Another hologram appeared. This one showed General Kexvon, the Zarathi leader who had first met Amanda Clark on Zerion. He now commanded what little military force the Coalition possessed. "We have maybe 50 transport ships total," Kexavon said grimly. "Not enough to move 2 million refugees in time. Most of these people will die." Kevin stared at the holograms, his mind racing. 2 million beings and only 3 days to save them. It was impossible using normal evacuation procedures. "Wait," he said suddenly. "What if we don't use normal procedures?" "What do you mean?" Ambassador Veltar asked. "Every species here has different medical technology, different ways of preserving life. What if we combine them all? Use Draconian, hibernation pods, Zentorian compression chambers, Zephyrian time dilation fields, everything we have." General Kexavon looked skeptical. "Those technologies were never designed to work together. The risk of equipment failure could kill thousands. The risk of doing nothing will kill millions," Kevin replied firmly. Nicole Adams had been listening from the doorway. "It could work," she said, stepping forward. "Scott has been documenting how all the different medical systems function. If we can integrate them with our portable life support systems, we could pack 5 times as many people into each transport ship," Kevin finished. "Maybe 10 times as many." Ambassador Veltar looked hopeful for the first time in days. "How quickly? Can this be done?" "Give us 12 hours to design the systems," Nicole said. "Then we'll need every medical professional on Haven's Edge to help install them." The next 12 hours were the most intense of Kevin's career. Human doctors worked with alien engineers to create hybrid life support systems that had never been attempted before. Scott Brown led teams that modified every available transport ship, installing equipment from a dozen different species into cramped cargo holds. Dr. Yithmar proved invaluable, using Zarathi biotechnology to create suspended animation chambers that could keep beings alive in very small spaces. Zephyrian doctors contributed time dilation fields that could slow down biological processes, reducing the oxygen and food needed for long journeys. The evacuation began on the second day. Refugee families were loaded into modified cargo holds, where they would sleep through the journey in hybrid hibernation systems. It was dangerous and untested, but it was their only chance. Kevin stood in one of the transport ships, watching as hundreds of beings from different species were carefully placed into the life support pods. Draconian children slept next to Zarathi elders. Zephyrian artists shared space with human technicians who had volunteered to help with the evacuation. The medical readings looked stable, Nicole reported, checking her scanners. Heart rates are dropping to hibernation levels across all species. Any equipment failures? Kevin asked. A few minor issues with the Zentaurian compression units, but Scott's teams are handling them. Overall, the hybrid systems are working better than expected. Scott Brown appeared at Kevin's shoulder, covered in grease and looking exhausted. Ship. 43 is loaded and ready for departure. That's the last of the medical transports. Kevin looked around the ship one more time. Where normally 50 beings might travel in comfort, they had managed to pack nearly 800 in hibernation. It was cramped and risky, but it would save lives. How many did we save? He asked. Nicole checked her data pad. 1.9 million beings evacuated. About 100,000 chose to stay and fight with General Kexavon's forces. Kevin felt a mixture of pride and sadness. They had saved almost everyone, but the cost had been enormous. The medical station would have to be abandoned, along with 6 months of work building cooperation between species. As the last transport ships departed Haven's Edge, Kevin stood on the bridge of the evacuating medical station. Behind them, the planet was already under attack. Crathari warships filled the sky, beginning their bombardment of the empty refugee camps. Where are we taking everyone? Nicole asked. Earth has offered temporary sanctuary, Kevin replied, and the Zarathi have opened their outer colonies to refugees. The Zephyrians are providing several uninhabited worlds. Think we'll ever come back here? Kevin watched as explosions bloomed across Haven's Edge's surface. The Crathari were destroying everything, even though they knew the planet was nearly empty. Maybe someday, he said quietly, but not as long as the Crathari Empire exists. The evacuation was broadcast across the galaxy. For the first time, species that had never worked together had saved millions of lives through cooperation. The images of beings from dozens of different worlds sleeping peacefully together in the modified transport ships became a symbol of hope. But in the Crathari capital, High Command watched the broadcasts with growing anger. The humans and their allies had denied them a great victory. Plans were made to ensure that such cooperation would never happen again. Admiral Thexkar, the Crathari military leader, made a pronouncement that would change everything. These human medics have become a threat to our expansion. They unite our enemies and give them hope. This cannot be allowed to continue. Orders went out to Crathari fleets across the galaxy. The next phase of their expansion would begin with eliminating the source of resistance, Earth's medical core. The war was about to become very personal. Dr. Amanda Clark was reviewing patient files in her quarters aboard the Sanctuary when the first emergency signal came through. The ship's communication system crackled with static before a desperate voice broke through. This is Medical Station, Alpha 7. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Crathari warships are firing on medical facilities. This is against all galactic law. We need immediate assistance. Amanda dropped her datapad and ran to the bridge. Captain Morrison was already there, his face pale as more distress signals flooded the communication channels. "Doctor," Morrison said grimly, "we're receiving emergency calls from medical facilities across 12 different star systems. They're all reporting the same thing. Krathari forces are targeting medical ships and hospitals." Amanda stared at the communication board in disbelief. The lights representing medical facilities were going dark one by one across the galaxy map. Each light represented hundreds of medical personnel and thousands of patients. "That's impossible," she said. "Medical facilities are protected under galactic law. No one attacks medical ships, not ever." Jake Thompson burst into the bridge, holding a communication device. His face was white with shock. "Dr. Clark, I just received a message from the hospital ship Mercy. Dr. Linda Foster was trying to evacuate patients when Krathari fighters attacked them directly." Amanda knew Linda Foster well. She was one of Earth's most experienced space medics, with 15 years of service saving lives across the galaxy. The Mercy was her ship, with a crew of 200 medical professionals. "What's their status?" Amanda asked. Though she feared the answer, Jake's voice broke. "There are no survivors. The Krathari destroyed the entire ship. All hands lost." The bridge fell silent. Captain Morrison closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Amanda felt like she had been punched in the stomach. Linda Foster was dead. Her entire crew was dead. 200 of the best medical professionals in the galaxy, murdered while trying to save lives. More reports continued to arrive. Medical Station Beta 4 had been bombed during surgery, killing doctors and patients together. The field hospital on Rigel 7 was attacked by Krathari ground troops who executed wounded soldiers and medical staff alike. Dr. Kevin Martinez contacted them from the medical station at Haven's Edge. His image appeared on the main screen, showing destruction in the background. "Amanda," Kevin said urgently, "Krathari death squads are hunting human medics on the ground. They're not taking prisoners. Jake Thompson needs to evacuate immediately." Amanda realized he was talking about Jake Thompson, who was still working on Zerion, helping coordinate medical aid to the outer colonies. If the Krathari were specifically targeting human medical personnel, he was in immediate danger. "We're going to Zerion right now," Amanda said. "Can you get there to help with evacuation?" "Already on my way," Kevin replied. "But Amanda, there's something else. The Krathari are broadcasting these attacks. They want the galaxy to see what they're doing to medical personnel." Amanda felt sick. The Krathari weren't just killing medics. They were making it into a public display. They wanted to terrorize anyone who might help their enemies. The sanctuary arrived at Zerion 6 hours. Later, the planet's surface was burning in several places where Krathari bombers had attacked medical facilities. As they approached the main hospital where Jake was working, Amanda could see Krathari soldiers surrounding the building. "They're not attacking. Yet," Captain Morrison observed. "It looks like they're waiting for something." The answer came when a Krathari communication appeared on their screens. Admiral Thexkar, the insect-like military commander, stood before a backdrop of captured medical personnel. "Beings of the galaxy," the Admiral began in his clicking voice, "behold the fate of those who aid the enemies of the Krathari Empire. These humans have healed our enemies and given them strength to resist our rightful expansion. They have made themselves combatants in this war." Behind him, Amanda could see dozens of human medical personnel kneeling with their hands bound. She recognized several faces, doctors and nurses she had worked with over the years. "Medical neutrality is a weakness we will no longer tolerate," Admiral Thexkar continued. "Any who heal our enemies are enemies themselves. Let this be a lesson to all who would stand against the Krathari Empire. The Admiral raised his weapon. Amanda screamed, "No!" But the communication was one way. She could only watch as the Krathari. Commander began executing the medical personnel one by one. Captain Morrison quickly cut the transmission, but the damage was done. Amanda had watched her friends and colleagues murdered in cold blood, their only crime being their dedication to saving lives. On the planet's surface, Jake Thompson was barricaded in the hospital with Dr. Yithmar and a group of Zarathi patients. Krathari soldiers had surrounded the building and were demanding surrender. Jake held a communication device with shaking hands as he spoke to the sanctuary. "Amanda, they want me to come out alone. They say they'll spare the patients if I surrender." "Don't do it, Jake," Amanda said desperately. "We're coming to get you." "There's no time," Jake replied calmly. "The patients can't be moved. Some of them are in critical condition. If I don't surrender, the Krathari will storm the building and kill everyone." Dr. Yithmar appeared on the communication screen next to Jake. The Zarathi healer looked angry and determined. "Human Jake has taught us much about medical ethics," Yithmar said. "He says a doctor's job is to protect patients above all else. We understand this now." Amanda watched helplessly as Jake made his decision. He looked directly into the camera and smiled sadly. "Tell Dr. Clark that her lessons about mercy and healing saved thousands of lives across the galaxy. That has to be worth something." Jake Thompson walked out of the hospital with his hands raised. The Krathari soldiers seized him immediately. Through the building's windows, Amanda could see them dragging him away while the patients and Zarathi medical staff watched in horror. Minutes later, the Krathari broadcast another execution. Jake Thompson, medical coordinator and healer, was killed while the galaxy watched. Amanda collapsed into a chair on the bridge. All around her, crew members were receiving news of friends and colleagues who had been murdered. The systematic attack on medical personnel was unlike anything in galactic history. Captain Morrison spoke quietly into his communication device, reporting to Earth Command. Confirmed casualties include the hospital ship Mercy with all hands, Medical Station Alpha 7 with 400 personnel, and at least 50 ground-based medical facilities. Total medical personnel killed or missing is estimated at over 3,000. 3,000 medical professionals murdered in a single day. Amanda thought of all the lives those people had saved over the years, all the suffering they had prevented. Now they were gone, killed simply for being healers. Dr. Kevin Martinez appeared on the communication screen, his face grim. "Amanda, we need to evacuate all remaining medical personnel immediately. The Krathari are hunting us systematically. They're not just targeting military medics. They're going after anyone who has ever treated their enemies." Amanda stood up slowly, her shock turning into something else. Something cold and hard that she had never felt before. "No," she said quietly. "What?" Kevin asked. "No more evacuations. No more running." Amanda's voice was getting stronger. "They want to see what happens when they murder healers? Fine. They're about to find out exactly what they've done." Captain Morrison looked at her with concern. "Doctor, what are you talking about?" Amanda turned to face the bridge crew. Her eyes were filled with something that none of them had ever seen in a medical professional before. It wasn't anger or hatred. It was the cold, precise fury of someone who understood exactly how much damage they could do when they chose to. "Stop healing and start hurting. Contact Earth Command," she said. "Tell them that Dr. Amanda Clark formally requests transfer to military service. The Age of Mercy just ended." The message that went out from the sanctuary that day would be remembered throughout galactic history. For the first time in human space exploration, a medical professional had officially requested combat duty. The Crithari had made the greatest mistake in their military history. They had attacked Earth's medics. Now they were about to learn why humans had chosen to be healers in the first place. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's capital, watching the holographic displays show the scope of the Crithari attack on medical facilities. Red markers indicated destroyed ships and stations. Each marker represented hundreds of dead medical personnel. The room was filled with military commanders, but none of them were speaking. The silence was heavy and cold. "Final casualty reports," said General Frank Mitchell, Earth's military commander. His voice was controlled, but Patricia could see the anger in his eyes. 3,417 medical personnel confirmed dead. 12 hospital ships destroyed. 43 medical stations bombed. Over 50 ground facilities attacked. Patricia stared at the numbers. In her 30 years of military service, she had never seen anything like this. Wars had rules. Medical personnel were sacred. They helped everyone, regardless of which side they fought for. Attacking them was unthinkable. "Any survivors?" she asked. "Some," General Mitchell replied. "Dr. Amanda Clark and her team escaped from Zarian. Dr. Kevin Martinez managed to evacuate most of his staff from Haven's Edge. But the Crithari are still hunting. They've declared all human medical personnel to be legitimate military targets." Patricia closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had served in 3 wars and countless smaller conflicts. She understood military necessity and the harsh realities of combat. But this was different. This was evil. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Blake, the intelligence officer, "we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. The attack on our medical corps has shocked everyone. Even the Critharis. Allies are condemning it." "Good," Patricia said grimly. "Maybe someone with sense will talk them out of this madness." President William Carter entered the war room at that moment. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Patricia had known him for years, and she had never seen him look this angry. "Admiral Hayes," the president said formally, "I've just finished addressing the Earth Assembly. The vote was unanimous." Patricia waited. She knew what was coming. "The Assembly has declared that the attack on our medical corps constitutes an act of war against Earth. We are authorized to use any means necessary to respond." General Mitchell leaned forward. "Sir, our military forces are limited. We've always focused on medical and diplomatic corps instead of building large fleets. We have good ships and excellent personnel, but not nearly enough to fight the entire Crithari Empire." President Carter's expression was ice cold. "Then we'll have to be creative, won't we?" Patricia understood what he meant. Earth's military was small, but it was also very advanced. They had focused on quality over quantity, developing weapons and tactics that other species couldn't match. "What are our options?" she asked. "Show them," President Carter said to Lieutenant Colonel Blake. The intelligence officer activated a new holographic display. This one showed Earth's actual military capabilities, information that was normally classified at the highest levels. "The Crithari think they know our strength based on our public fleet numbers," Blake explained. "They're wrong. Every medical ship in our fleet has hidden military capabilities. Every medical station can be converted to a weapons platform. Every one of our medics has received combat training." Patricia studied the display. The numbers were impressive. Earth's medical fleet, when converted to military use, was actually larger than most galactic navies. "How long for full conversion?" she asked. 72 hours for the ships. Medical stations will take longer, but they can be made into formidable defensive positions. General Mitchell was looking at another part of the display. What about personnel? Our medics are trained in combat, but they're still medics. Can they make the psychological transition to warfare? President Carter's smile was not pleasant. General, I think you're underestimating our medical corps. These people have spent years saving lives, seeing suffering, watching people die despite their best efforts. They understand death better than most soldiers ever will, Patricia thought. About the medical personnel she had worked with over the years. They were some of the toughest people she knew. They worked in impossible conditions, faced death daily, and never gave up trying to save lives. If they decided to focus that same dedication on ending lives instead of saving them, they would be terrifying opponents. There's something else, Lieutenant Colonel Blake said, highlighting another section of the display. Dr. Amanda Clark has formally requested transfer to military service. She wants to lead the response operations. Amanda Clark? General Mitchell asked. She's been a medic for 15 years. What does she know about military operations? More than you might think, Patricia replied. She's been in more combat zones than most of our officers. She knows alien anatomy better than anyone. And right now, she has something that makes her very dangerous. What's that? Nothing left to lose. The meeting was interrupted by an incoming transmission. The image of Dr. Amanda Clark appeared on the main screen. She was aboard the sanctuary, but she looked different. Her medical uniform had been replaced with military fatigues. Her eyes held a coldness that Patricia had never seen in a medical professional. Admiral Hayes, Amanda said formally, requesting permission to speak. Granted, Doctor, or should I say Colonel Clark? Amanda's expression didn't change. I prefer Doctor, ma'am. I want the Krathari to remember what I used to be when they see what I'm going to do to them. And what exactly are you going to do, Doctor? Amanda leaned closer to the camera. I'm going to use everything I learned about keeping people alive to figure out the most efficient ways to kill Krathari. I'm going to take every technique I developed for healing their wounded and reverse it. I'm going to show them what happens when someone who understands mercy decides to stop being merciful. The war room was silent. Patricia had heard many threats of revenge over the years, but this was different. This wasn't emotional rage. This was cold, clinical determination. Do you have a specific plan? General Mitchell asked. Yes, sir. We're going to hit them where they think they're safest. Their medical facilities, their supply lines, their command centers. We're going to be surgical about it. No unnecessary casualties. No civilian targets. But every Krathari military installation is going to learn why it was a mistake to attack Earth's medics. President Carter stepped forward. Dr. Clark, I understand your anger. We all share it. But we can't. Let emotion drive our strategy. Amanda's expression softened slightly. Mr. President, this isn't about emotion. This is about demonstrating a principle. For 100 years, Earth's medical corps has saved lives without asking for payment or loyalty. We've been neutral in every conflict, healing anyone who needed help. The Krathari have destroyed that neutrality. They've made medical personnel into legitimate targets. She paused and looked directly at the camera. If the galaxy is going to allow the murder of medics, then the galaxy needs to understand the consequences. We choose to heal because we understand life's value, but we also understand death with equal precision. Patricia felt a chill run down her spine. She was looking at the birth of something new and terrible. The Earth Medical Corps had been the galaxy's greatest force for mercy and healing. Now they were about to become something else entirely. What do you need from us? Patricia asked. full military authorization for all medical personnel, access to our hidden weapon systems, and permission to recruit from the refugee populations we've been helping. A lot of them want revenge against the Krathari. General Mitchell was studying tactical displays. With the refugee populations and our converted medical fleet, we could field a force of significant size, but we're still talking about going to war with the largest military empire in the galaxy. Amanda smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. General, the Krathari Empire is large, but it's also overextended. They've been conquering worlds for decades without serious opposition. They're not prepared for a real war against an enemy that understands their weaknesses. What weaknesses? Patricia asked. Their biology, their psychology, their military doctrine, their supply chains. We've been treating their wounded for years. We know everything about them. We know exactly how to hurt them most efficiently, President. Carter made his decision. Dr. Clark, you have full authorization to proceed. God help us all. As the transmission ended, Patricia looked around the war room. The faces she saw were grim but determined. Earth was about to go to war for the first time in its history as a spacefaring civilization. But this wouldn't be a war of conquest or expansion. This would be a war of retribution, led by people who had spent their lives healing and now knew exactly how to inflict maximum damage. The Krathari had attacked Earth's medics. Now they were about to meet Earth's angels of death. The transformation of Earth's medical fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that had once carried healing equipment now bristled with weapons. Medical stations that had welcomed the injured became fortress bases. Most shocking of all, the gentle doctors and nurses who had dedicated their lives to saving others were learning how to become the most efficient killers in the galaxy. Dr. Amanda Clark stood on the bridge of the sanctuary, but the ship barely resembled the hospital vessel it had been just weeks before. Hidden weapon systems had been activated throughout the hull. The medical bays had been converted to tactical planning centers. The ship's white hull with red medical crosses had been painted matte black with silver symbols that looked like wings. Status. Report, Amanda said to her new tactical officer. It was still strange to hear military language on what had been a medical ship. All conversion systems are online, replied Lieutenant Tony Garcia, a former paramedic who had transitioned to weapons control. The particle cannon array is fully charged. Stealth systems are operational. We're ready for our first mission. Amanda looked at the tactical display showing their target, a Krathari supply depot in the Vega system. It was heavily defended and considered one of their most secure facilities. Under normal circumstances, attacking it would require a large fleet and significant casualties, but these were not normal circumstances. Dr. Martinez, are your teams ready? Amanda asked. Kevin Martinez appeared on the communication screen from the converted medical ship Phoenix. His expression was grim but determined. Medical combat teams Alpha through Delta are standing by. We've studied the Krathari defensive patterns and identified 17 critical vulnerabilities. The Medical Combat Corps was something new in galactic warfare. These were doctors and nurses who had spent years learning alien anatomy, now applying that knowledge to combat operations. They knew exactly where to hit enemy soldiers to incapacitate them quickly. They understood which weapons would be most effective against different species. Most importantly, they could move through enemy facilities like antibodies attacking an infection. Remember, Amanda said to the assault teams, we're not here for revenge. We're here to demonstrate a principle: minimum necessary force, precision, strikes. No unnecessary casualties. Captain Ryan Kelly had officially joined the Medical Combat Corps after seeing what the Crithari had done to the healers. He led the Marine units that would provide security for the doctor soldiers. "Teams are ready for deployment," Ryan reported. "The Zarathi and Zephyrian volunteers are eager to show what they learned from working with our medical teams." The coalition of refugee species had provided thousands of volunteers for Earth's war effort. They had been saved by human medics and now wanted to fight alongside them. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together under Earth's leadership. The assault on the Vega Depot began with surgical precision. The Sanctuary and 2 other converted medical ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, their stealth systems making them nearly invisible to Crithari sensors. "Defensive patterns are exactly as predicted," reported Dr. Lisa Wang, from her position at the Tactical Analysis Station. "Their sensor grid has 3 blind spots that we can exploit." Amanda watched as the attack unfolded on the main display. Small teams of Medical Combat Corps personnel were infiltrating the depot using techniques that no military in the galaxy had ever seen before. Dr. Martinez led Team Alpha through the depot's medical wing. His knowledge of Crithari biology allowed him to disable guards with precise nerve strikes that left them unconscious but unharmed. Behind him, former nurses moved through the facility like ghosts, their medical training helping them navigate the complex layout of alien biology labs and surgical centers. "Alpha Team has secured the medical records," Kevin reported. "We now have complete genetic profiles on the Crithari High Command and detailed information about their biological weapons research." Team Beta, led by Dr. Wang, had infiltrated the weapons depot. Their mission was different but equally important. "Beta Team has located the chemical weapons storage," Wang reported. "Deploying neutralization compounds now." The Medical Combat Corps had developed techniques for neutralizing biological and chemical weapons that were far more advanced than traditional military methods. They understood disease and poison at a molecular level, allowing them to create countermeasures that other species couldn't match. Team Gamma was deep in the facility's command center. Former paramedic Scott Brown was using his knowledge of alien technology to hack into Crithari communication systems. "We're accessing their strategic databases," Scott reported. "Downloading locations of all medical facilities targeted for destruction, also getting troop movement plans and supply routes." The most dangerous mission belonged to Team Delta, led by Captain Ryan Kelly and Dr. Nicole Adams. They were targeting the depot's command staff, but their goal wasn't assassination. It was something much more precise. "Delta Team has located Admiral Krixhar," Nicole reported. "Beginning extraction procedure." Amanda watched as her teams worked with clockwork precision. Admiral Krixhar was the Crithari officer responsible for planning the attacks on medical facilities. He would stand trial for war crimes, but first he would provide intelligence about other planned attacks. "Extraction complete," Ryan reported. "The Admiral is secured and ready for transport. No Crithari casualties." Within 2 hours, the entire operation was complete. The Vega Depot had been neutralized without a single death. The Medical Combat Corps had proven that their approach to warfare was as revolutionary as their approach to medicine had been. But the real message was in what they left behind. "Broadcasting now," reported Lieutenant Garcia. On every screen in the depot, a message from Dr. Amanda Clark began playing. Her image appeared calm and professional, just as it had been when she was treating patients across the galaxy. "To the Crithari Empire," she began, "you have made the mistake of attacking medical personnel. You believed that healers were weak and could be murdered without consequence. You were wrong." The message continued as scenes from the raid played on auxiliary screens. Chthari soldiers disabled with surgical precision. Chemical weapons neutralized. Strategic information downloaded. The depot's command staff captured without injury. We are Earth's medical corps. We have spent years learning how to preserve life. We know anatomy, biochemistry, genetics, and physiology better than any military in the galaxy. You have forced us to turn that knowledge toward a different purpose. Amanda paused and looked directly into the camera. Every species has weaknesses. Every biological system has vulnerabilities. Every military organization has critical failure points. We know all of yours. We have been healing your soldiers for years, learning your biology, studying your tactics. You have created your own worst enemy. The final part of the message was the most chilling. From this day forward, any attack on medical personnel will result in immediate and precise retaliation. We will not target civilians. We will not destroy cities or commit massacres, but we will systematically dismantle your military capability with surgical precision until you surrender those responsible for war crimes. The message ended with footage of Admiral Krixhar in custody, being treated for minor injuries by the same Medical Combat Corps members who had captured him. This is Dr. Amanda Clark of the Earth Medical Corps. We choose to heal whenever possible, but we are prepared to do whatever is necessary to protect those who cannot protect themselves. You have been warned. The broadcast went out across the galaxy within hours. The response was immediate and shocking. The Chthari Empire, which had seemed unstoppable, had been penetrated and humiliated by a force they had dismissed as harmless healers. More importantly, other species began to understand what Earth's medical corps had become. They were still healers, still dedicated to preserving life. But they had evolved into something new and terrifying. Warriors who fought with the precision of surgeons and the knowledge of those who truly understood the value of life. The Chthari High Command received the message with growing alarm. They had expected easy targets when they attacked medical ships. Instead, they had awakened something that they were completely unprepared to fight. Admiral Thexkar stared at the tactical reports from the Vega depot. How did they penetrate our most secure facility without triggering a single alarm? Unknown, sir, his aide replied nervously. Their techniques are unlike anything in our military databases. Thexkar was beginning to understand the magnitude of his mistake. Issue orders to all fleets. Earth's medical ships are now classified as high-priority military targets. Use maximum force. But it was already too late. Across the galaxy, converted, medical ships were emerging from hyperspace near Chthari facilities. The angels of death had spread their wings, and the war was about to become very one-sided. The war room aboard the flagship Resolution was unlike any command center the galaxy had ever seen. Medical displays showed Chthari biological data alongside tactical information. Former doctors analyzed enemy weaknesses while planning surgical strikes against military targets. Dr. Amanda Clark stood at the center of it all, coordinating an assault that would determine the fate of the Chthari Empire. Target analysis complete, reported Dr. Kevin Martinez from his position at the Biological Warfare Station. Kratos Prime's defensive grid has been designed to stop conventional military attacks. They're not prepared for our approach. Kratos Prime was the capital world of the Chthari Empire, home to billions of civilians and the military high command responsible for ordering the massacre of medical personnel. It was the most heavily defended planet in known space, surrounded by layers of orbital fortresses and protected by the largest fleet in the galaxy. "What's our casualty projection?" Amanda asked. Dr. Lisa Wang looked up from her analysis computers. Using conventional assault methods, we'd need a fleet of over 1,000 ships and would expect 60% casualties. Using our techniques, we can accomplish the same objectives with 12 ships and minimal losses. Amanda studied the tactical display. Krathos Prime looked like a fortress world, bristling with weapons and protected by massive shields. But her medical training allowed her to see it differently. Every defense system had biological components. Every fortress was operated by living beings with specific vulnerabilities. Dr. Nicole Adams, status on the biological countermeasures? Nicole looked up from her laboratory station. We've developed targeted compounds based on the genetic samples from our previous operations. These will temporarily disable Krathari nervous systems without permanent damage. Deployment time is 30 minutes. Scott Brown, what about their communication networks? The former paramedic was now Earth specialist in alien technology warfare. Their quantum communication arrays use biological computers grown from Krathari. Brain tissue. I can introduce a virus that will cause temporary confusion without destroying the hardware. Amanda nodded. The Medical Combat Corps had learned to fight wars the way doctors fought disease, identify the cause, understand the biological mechanisms, and apply precise treatments that solved the problem without unnecessary damage. Captain Ryan Kelly, are the strike teams ready? Ryan appeared on the communications screen from his assault ship. Behind him, Amanda could see teams of former medics in military gear, checking weapons that had been designed using medical knowledge of alien anatomy. All teams ready, Ryan reported. The Zarathi volunteers are particularly eager to reach the War Crimes Tribunal records. General Kexavan says his people want to see justice for the murdered healers. The coalition of refugee species had grown into a formidable military force under Earth's leadership. Species that had been enemies for generations were now working together, united by their respect for the medical corps and their desire to see the Krathari held accountable for their crimes. Remember our primary objectives, Amanda said to all teams. Capture the High Command alive for trial, secure evidence of war crimes, disable their military capabilities, minimize civilian casualties. We're here to perform surgery on their government, not to commit massacre. The assault on Krathos Prime began with the deployment of biological countermeasures. Tiny drones, designed to look like space debris, carried compounds that would temporarily affect Krathari brain chemistry. Within minutes, the entire orbital defense network began experiencing coordination problems. Defensive response is exactly as predicted, reported Dr. Wang. Their reaction times are slowed by 30%. Command coordination is breaking down. The second phase involved Scott Brown's attack on their communication systems. From his position aboard the stealth ship Scalpel, he introduced carefully designed computer viruses into the Krathari quantum network. Communication disruption successful, Scott reported. They can't coordinate fleet movements or call for reinforcements. The biological computers are experiencing what we might call artificial confusion. Phase 3 was the most dangerous. Strike teams led by Medical Combat Corps personnel began infiltrating the orbital fortresses. These former doctors and nurses moved through enemy installations with the precision of surgical instruments. Dr. Martinez led Alpha Team through the primary command station. His knowledge of Krathari anatomy allowed him to predict exactly how the enemy soldiers would react to different stimuli. Applying pressure to the secondary nerve cluster, he reported, as he disabled a guard with a single precise touch. Subject will recover in approximately 4 hours. Team Beta, led by Nicole Adams, had the most critical mission. They were targeting the underground bunker where the Krathari High Command was hiding. Nicole's background in emergency medicine helped her navigate the complex tunnel system while avoiding detection. "Beta team has reached the command bunker," Nicole reported. "Beginning application of aerosol compounds now." The compounds she deployed were masterpieces of medical engineering. They would render the Krathari leadership unconscious without causing permanent harm, allowing for their capture and eventual trial. "High command is secured," Nicole reported 20 minutes later. "Admiral Thexkar and the entire War Council are in custody. Also recovered, complete records of their biological weapons programs and lists of planned attacks on medical facilities. Doctor." Lisa Wang was coordinating the most complex part of the operation, the systematic disabling of Krathos Prime's military infrastructure. Using her knowledge of Krathari technology and biology, she was able to target the specific weak points that would shut down their war machine without harming civilian systems. "Military production facilities are offline," Wang reported. "Weapon storage depots have been neutralized. Fleet command centers are non-functional. The planet's military capability has been effectively eliminated. Throughout the operation, strict protocols were followed to minimize civilian casualties. Medical teams were standing by to treat any Krathari injured in the assault. Food and medical supplies continued to flow to civilian areas. The message was clear. Earth's medical corps was at war with the Krathari military, not with their people. Phase 4 complete, Amanda announced to all teams. Begin evidence collection and prisoner processing. The final phase of the operation involved documenting the full scope of Krathari war crimes. Teams of former medical personnel, now acting as military investigators, began collecting evidence that would be used in the trials to come. Captain Ryan Kelly's teams discovered storage facilities containing the personal effects of murdered medical personnel. "We found belongings from the crew of the Mercy," Ryan reported grimly. "Also documentation of planned attacks on 12 more medical facilities." The evidence was overwhelming. The Krathari had systematically planned and executed the largest massacre of medical personnel in galactic history. They had violated every law of war and every principle of civilized conduct. As the operation concluded, Dr. Amanda Clark addressed the galaxy from the captured command center on Krathos Prime. Behind her, Krathari military leaders sat in restraint, fields, waiting to be transported to Earth for trial. "The military government of the Krathari Empire has been removed from power," she announced. "Those responsible for war crimes against medical personnel are now in custody and will face justice. The Krathari people are free to establish a new government that respects galactic law." Amanda paused and looked directly into the camera. "To all species watching this broadcast, the Earth Medical Corps has demonstrated that we possess both the ability and the will to protect medical neutrality. We prefer to heal, but we are prepared to fight when necessary. Any future attacks on medical personnel will be met with immediate and overwhelming response." The conquest of Krathos Prime had taken less than 6 hours. The most powerful military empire in the galaxy had been defeated by a force of converted medical ships and reformed healers. The operation had been executed with surgical precision, minimal casualties, and complete success. But the most important outcome was the message it sent to the galaxy. Medical personnel were no longer defenseless targets. They were under the protection of Earth's Medical Corps, and that protection was absolute. General Kex Vaughn, watching the broadcast from his ship, turned to his aide with something approaching awe. "These humans," he said quietly, "they have shown us what true strength looks like. Not the strength to destroy, but the strength to heal and protect." The aide nodded. Will the galaxy be different now? Kexavon thought for a moment, watching as human medical teams began treating wounded Krathari soldiers with the same care they had always shown to patients. Yes, he said finally, the galaxy will be very different. These humans have taught us that mercy is not weakness. It is the ultimate expression of power. The war was effectively over, but the real work was just beginning. Earth's medical corps had proven their point with overwhelming force. Now they had to prove that they could build a lasting peace. 6 months after the fall of Krathos Prime, Dr. Amanda Clark stood before the Galactic Council in the Great Assembly Hall on New Geneva. The chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, all watching as she prepared to address the most significant gathering in galactic history. The war crimes trials had concluded the week before. Admiral Thexkar and 47 other Krathari military leaders had been found guilty of systematic murder of medical personnel. The evidence had been overwhelming, presented by former doctors who now served as military prosecutors. Dr. Kevin Martinez had served as the chief prosecutor. His medical knowledge had helped him document every atrocity with scientific precision. The defendants planned and executed attacks on medical facilities with full knowledge that such actions violated every principle of galactic law, he had stated in his closing argument. They murdered healers simply for being healers. The trials had been broadcast across the galaxy. Species that had never agreed on anything found themselves united in condemning the attacks on medical personnel. The Krathari Empire had collapsed, replaced by a democratic government that had immediately signed treaties respecting medical neutrality. Now Amanda faced the challenge of ensuring that such crimes could never happen again. "Distinguished representatives," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. 6 months ago, the galaxy witnessed the unthinkable. Medical personnel, protected under galactic law for over 1,000 years, were systematically murdered while trying to save lives. The chamber was silent. Every being present remembered the images of burning hospital ships and executed doctors. The Earth Medical Corps responded to these attacks with force, Amanda continued. We did so not out of revenge, but out of necessity. We demonstrated that those who heal are not helpless, and that attacks on medical personnel will have consequences. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrians stood to address the assembly. The Earth Medical Corps saved millions of lives during the refugee crisis at Haven's Edge. When the Krathari attacked their healers, these humans could have chosen to withdraw from galactic affairs. Instead, they chose to fight for the principle that medical personnel should be protected. General Kexavon, now representing the Zarathi in the new galactic order, added his voice. The humans taught my people that mercy is strength, not weakness. When their mercy was attacked, they showed us what happens when strength is applied with surgical precision. Amanda nodded to both speakers before continuing. The war has ended, but the work of peace has just begun. Earth proposes the establishment of a new framework for medical protection that will ensure what happened to our healers can never happen again. She activated a holographic display that showed the proposed treaty structure. The Galactic Medical Protection Treaty will establish several key principles. First, medical personnel from any species will be considered neutral in all conflicts. Second, any attack on medical facilities or personnel will be considered an attack on all signatories. Third, Earth's Medical Corps will serve as the enforcement body for these protections. The proposal caused immediate discussion throughout the assembly. Many species were concerned about giving enforcement authority to any single world. even one that had proven its commitment to healing. Counselor Grixalon of the Andromedan Federation raised the main concern. While we respect Earth's medical core, giving one species the authority to enforce galactic law sets a dangerous precedent. Amanda had expected this objection. The enforcement authority will not be used for conquest or political control. Earth's medical core will only act to protect medical neutrality. We propose that any enforcement action must be approved by a council of species that have benefited from medical assistance. Dr. Nicole Adams, now serving as Amanda's chief diplomatic advisor, stepped forward. The Enforcement Council would include representatives from every species that has received aid from the medical corps. This includes former enemies who have been treated equally in our hospitals. The debate continued for hours. Species that had been at war for centuries found themselves on the same side, supporting the protection of medical personnel. The shared experience of receiving care from human doctors had created bonds that transcended old hatreds. Finally, Vextar, the former Krathari warrior who had been saved by Dr. Wang during the Zephyr conflict, addressed the assembly. He now served as a representative of the new Krathari democratic government. "My people committed terrible crimes against healers," he said, his voice heavy with shame. "The humans had every right to destroy us completely. Instead, they chose to save civilian lives while removing our criminal leadership. They showed us that justice and mercy can exist together." He paused and looked directly at Amanda. "The Earth Medical Corps has proven that they will fight to protect healers, but they will not abuse that power. I ask you, who else in this galaxy has shown such restraint when they possess the ability to destroy their enemies completely?" The vote was unanimous. Every species represented in the Galactic Council signed the Medical Protection Treaty. Earth's Medical Corps was officially recognized as the guardian of medical neutrality throughout the galaxy. But Amanda's final words to the assembly would be remembered for generations. "We accept this responsibility with the same dedication we have always shown to healing," she said, "but let no one mistake our acceptance for weakness. We choose to heal because we understand life's value. We also understand death with equal precision." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. Medical personnel will be protected. Medical facilities will be respected. Medical neutrality will be maintained. This is not a request or a hope. This is a promise, backed by the absolute commitment of Earth's Medical Corps. Amanda paused for emphasis. "We have shown what happens when healers are attacked. We prefer never to show it again. But we will show it as many times as necessary to protect those who dedicate their lives to saving others." The chamber erupted in applause, but Amanda continued speaking. "To those who would harm healers, remember that our mercy is a choice, not a weakness. We are doctors, nurses, and medical technicians. We understand biology, chemistry, and the delicate systems that sustain life. We can preserve those systems with incredible skill." Her voice grew cold. "We can also disrupt them with surgical precision. The choice of which path we take is entirely yours. Choose wisely." The treaty signing ceremony took place that afternoon. As Amanda signed Earth's name to the document, she thought about Jake Thompson, Linda Foster, and all the other medical personnel who had died simply for being healers. Their sacrifice had led to the strongest protection for medical neutrality in galactic history. Dr. Lisa Wang, now serving as the director of the Medical Protection Enforcement Division, approached Amanda after the ceremony. "Do you think it will hold?" she asked. Will species really respect medical neutrality now? Amanda looked out the window at the ships from dozens of different worlds gathered for the treaty signing. Many of those ships carried patients who had been treated by Earth's medical corps. Their crews had seen human doctors risk their lives to save others without asking for anything in return. It will hold, Amanda said confidently. Not because of the treaty, but because we've shown what we're capable of. The galaxy has seen us heal, and they've seen us fight. They know we'll do whatever is necessary to protect medical personnel. Scott Brown joined them at the window. The communication networks are reporting the treaty signing across the galaxy. Early response is overwhelmingly positive. Even former enemies are expressing support for medical protection. Amanda smiled for the first time in months. Good. Maybe now our medical teams can go back to doing what they do best, saving lives. What about the military medical corps? Lisa asked. Do we maintain the combat capabilities? We keep everything, Amanda replied firmly. The medical ships, the weapons systems, the combat training. We hope never to use them again, but we'll be ready if we need to. As the sun set over New Geneva, Amanda reflected on how much had changed. Earth's medical corps was no longer just a force for healing. They had become the galaxy's protectors of medical neutrality, equally capable of preserving life and ending threats to those who preserved life. The age of mercy had not ended. It had evolved. Earth's medics remained dedicated to healing, but they had proven that mercy backed by strength was more powerful than mercy alone. Across the galaxy, medical stations flew new flags showing the Earth Medical Corps symbol, a caduceus, surrounded by protective wings. The message was clear to anyone who saw it. Here were healers. They were under the protection of Earth. They would treat anyone who needed help, regardless of species or allegiance, but any who harmed them would face the angels of death. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. Those who choose to heal are not weak. They are the strongest of all because they understand both life and death with perfect clarity, and they will protect both with equal dedication.